Did you know that every instrument, every violin has different F-holes? Or let's say there is Stradivari and Guarneri, but there are so many other models and only Guarneri made already so many different F-holes. Today we talk about F-holes. Hello, back again. This is Edgar, this time from the new workshop. It's all fake. It's all fake because since we arrived here 2 weeks ago, I didn't do anything of violin making and I just put it on the apron for the first time while we were drilling holes and putting the books and trying to assemble everything to make finally the video about the new workshop. But we decided different, and so we make now a video about the F-holes because Haruna is the only one of all of us working already on instruments, and I had to draw with her on 4 Linea Macchi violins the F-holes. And by drawing these F-holes, actually it popped up how many tiny things you have to think about it. And so now I'm going to tell you a few of those things about the F-holes. Since I have already a certain age, I have already a little bit of experience about building an instrument, and I just remember in the very first years, for me it was pretty easy. You sign it, you cut it out, and that's it. One had to be more equal than the other one, yeah, of course, so then you try to make it symmetric, and I didn't have these big difficulties. Even so, if I look nowadays to my F-holes I was cutting at that time, I say, oh damn, I thought already I'm a Stradivari. Generally speaking, putting the F-holes on an instrument isn't that difficult. We have here a nice box, and there we have all the models. And let's say if I make a copy of an instrument, I make the photocopy in the right size of the entire top in that section, and I make both F-holes. And then I cut it out so I can go look through it. And with that model, then I sign it to my ready-made arching on the violin. And this is a system. Now, if you are deeper into violin making and you read books and things like this, you will discover that this is Edgar's style, or let's say contemporary Cremona style, because Stradivari and very likely also Amati already before, and also Guarneri, they had a very different way of cutting the F-holes. And very likely they even started to make the instrument, some say, from the inside and then to the outside. They had some different ways how to see the entire arching, the entire instrument. At that time they had to drill the 4 holes before they were closing the instruments. And then they had a metal template, exactly the opposite of our models we have of our F-holes. They put it out of brass, thin brass, they put it next to these drills and had 2 nails, and then passed along it with the knife. From one side, finished with one side, took it out, and from the inside, from both sides. And then they took it out like the Toblerone, when you break off a triangle of chocolate, they squeezed out the F-hole. And that's the reason that on old instruments, the F-holes, the sides, aren't that clean how we have to nowadays. Nowadays, we cut it with a normal traforo. This is the one which I had when I was a small child, but it's a really good one because it's out of good metal and then it's not jumping back. And here you have a small blade inside. You put in one and then you drill a small hole, you put top in, and then at the time they cut it with a knife. When I was in the violin making school, I cut it with this traforo. Then I took files and then we created some kind of files with sandpaper glued on it, and then we kind of cleaning it, and we did some strange tools. And nowadays I just think, what's all that about? Now I take my knives and I have 2 or 3 of them. It takes me, like, if nobody's disturbing, 10-15 minutes, my F-hole is finished, another 10 minutes for the other one, and that's it. Yeah. When we make a copy, of course, we try to understand why Guarneri has always one different, and we make it already, this one like this and the other one like that. Stradivari was pretty consistent and very brave and very clean. But still, if you would say he's now the perfection in person, I have some reserves. Years ago, I looked at it and it was all perfect. Nowadays, I look at it and I say, wow, this was something years ago. I looked at it and like the Cremonese, if you look at these F-holes of the Cremonese, yeah, they're nice F-holes, but perfection is different. Nowadays, we look at it much different because we have everybody a phone in the pocket, and we have scanners, and we have photocopies, which we can do just let's go over there and you can make a photocopy and whatever. And it's not anymore the same value than it had been like 40 years ago. Yeah, I have to admit that. So there is just one thing. In the beginning, I didn't really pay too much attention about the F-holes when I was a greenhorn in violin making, and there were already some people talking about the F-holes and how it influences its sound. This entire channel is about that every detail is changing something. And true, even the F-holes. There are some parts of an F-hole where I could see definitely, let's say here with a cello F-hole, we call these parts here the wings, the lower wing, which is close to the C bout. This lower wing, I'm sure that on a violin or even on a viola and cello, for the treble side, for the first and second string, especially the first one, of course, the highest string, thickness of this wing is fundamental. You can't make it thick enough. If it's too thin, this is probably creating a vibration which interferes with these high frequencies of these instruments, and then this first string is not strong enough. If you want a super strong first string where people play and you kind of, there is no limit, and you even if he's playing already the loudest way he's playing, you still have an impression he could make it sound even louder, then something like this, like a no-limit first string is obtained by a thick lower wing, okay? The upper one is less influencing, yeah? Then, about the size and the length, I made all my trials years ago and more and whatever. I thought for many years that the long F-holes of a Guarneri are making the Guarneri sound. It's not the F-hole, it's the body shape. It's the body shape and not the F-hole. Another thing, I thought the difference, the size of one F-hole to another one, this is like fundamental for the sound of an instrument, this opening here. And on a violin, in violin making school, they taught us it has to be 42 millimeters. There is hardly no Stradivari, with a 42. Maybe the Cremonese, but I think it's almost 42.5 over there. This 42 is just a number. Forget it. Usually it's much smaller, and you can even find it larger. And this difference of the eye does not influence that much the sound as most people would imagine. Even myself, I thought for at least 20 years that this is changing the sound. It is not in changing the sound. One last thing, which I think is like a pain, if people, when they look at an instrument, by watching the thickness of the F-hole, they decide or they believe to understand what the thickness the entire top and the entire instrument will have. And if this is thin, they say, they judge the instrument that it's all too thin. Believe me, what you see is not what it is. It's just a tiny step from here to here, and you can have it here already like 5 millimeters, and here it seems like 1 millimeter. This is not how to judge if the instrument is thin or thick, okay? It's just what you see, okay? With this one, with my Wubi, I can fix a certain measurement, and then when I'm making my thicknesses of the top, then I punch around the F-hole and I make it just all equal. In my very beginning of my career, I focused a lot on making it, the cut of the F-hole, a little bit under square, in order that when I look at the violin, that the F-hole comes very sharp, right? So if you cut these lines and they are slightly inclined towards the inside and it's getting a little bit bigger towards the inside, then these lines become more sharp. If you make it like the old masters, where they cut along from the outside and from the inside, and then they just broke out these pieces, automatically this line is less sharp and it's a little bit dirty, let's call it, or a little bit rounded and whatever. And this immediately makes the appearance of the F-hole a little bit softer. So to obtain that, you just make it all very straight inside without any underneath bigger, and automatically there will be in every way you look at it, something on behind, which is a little bit disturbing, that you see a sharp F hole. And that makes it that it appears a little bit softer. And last and not least, typical way is that the German instruments put it black or something dark on these walls of the F holes, and it makes the whole thing really nice finished. Indeed, the Germans are really great. If you just see a nice Mercedes SL, this is just a great car and it looks super nice. But if you want an authentic, aggressive, original Italian sports car, you will see it's not that perfect. And same is it with the violins. They didn't put a dark varnish on the walls. They just varnished the instrument, and there came a little bit of this same colored varnish also in that area. And that's why I think it's very Italian to varnish these F holes. Nowadays, a lot of Cremonese makers, a lot of Italian makers put these black or dark brown tempera on it, and I think this is just I can't stand it to see it, because this is not authentic Italian. And I say that because I am not Italian, I am from Austria, and so for me it is even more screaming that fact that it should be authentic Italian, and I love to see that varnished around in these F holes. And this gives you, this is nice. And it doesn't need to be perfect. You don't have to polish it. You don't have to retouch it. It's nice if there are some drops of varnish inside. It doesn't have to be like the hood of a car. It's just a violin, and it should be a little bit of this authentic, like the great masters made their violins. That's the way how I think a F-hole should be finished. Tell me what you think about this and leave your comment below. And if you have difficulties to write any comment, leave me at least a like and subscribe. See you next time. Ciao, ciao.